"What was that?" she hissed as she dragged me toward a secluded alcove. "Why did you help me? I could have handled that myself. I was going to use it as an excuse to freeze her vocal cords. And then you would have been the monster the Empire hates," I said, pinning her against the stone wall. "I told you, Shael, I'm not letting you walk that path anymore. You want to be evil? Fine. Be evil to the people who deserve it. But don't let a manipulative girl like Clyde turn you into a caricature." "You looked at her," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You looked at her with such focus. You're supposed to be looking at me. I am the one you're rehabilitating. I am your obsession." "I am looking at you," I countered, leaning in until our foreheads touched. "I was watching Cly because she's a threat to us. You're the only person in this room I care about. Don't let your narrow-mindedness blind you to that." "I hate you," she said, but she didn't pull away. Her breath was warm against my lips, a stark contrast to the cold manna she was still radiating. "I hate you more than anything in this world." "I know," I replied. "That's why you're holding on to me like I'm the only thing keeping you from falling." We stayed in that alcove for a long time, the sounds of the banquet fading into a muffled hum. Sale was a mess of stupid emotions, bitterness, jealousy, pride, and a burgeoning, terrifying affection that she couldn't name. She was the evil woman who had just laughed at a countess's ruin. Yet here she was, trembling in the arms of the man she was destined to kill. The visit to the Mage Tower was supposed to be a demonstration of her power, but it had turned into a demonstration of her vulnerability. As we prepared to leave, the Tower Master, Aaron, watched us from the shadows, a knowing smile on his face. He saw what Sale didn't, that the Villainess was no longer a threat to the world, but a woman who was slowly, agonizingly being rebuilt by the man who dared to call her a bitch and mean it. Back in the privacy of our guest chambers, the silence returned, but it was different now. Sael sat on the edge of the bed, her hair half unraveled, looking at the pendant she had bought for 4 million gold. "It's ugly," she said quietly. "It is," I agreed, sitting in the chair opposite her, "but it served its purpose. And what was that? To prove I'm a fool? To prove that you'll do anything to feel like you're still in control," I said. "Go to sleep, Shale. Tomorrow, we deal with the fallout of your evil performance. The Empire will be talking about the Duke's daughter who outspent a countess and the fiancé who stood down a saint. We've officially become the most dangerous couple in the capital." "I am not part of a couple," she grumbled, pulling the covers over her head. "I am a solo villain, if that makes you feel better," I laughed, snuffing out the candle. "But even a solo villain needs someone to sharpen her blades, and I'm not going anywhere." In the dark, I heard her heart beating a fast, rhythmic sound that told me the rehabilitation was moving into its most volatile stage. The wicked woman was no longer unknown to me, and as she drifted into a restless sleep, I knew that the script of the original novel had been burned to ashes. We were writing a new story now, one where the Villainess didn't meet a tragic end, but instead found something far more terrifying: a reason to stay alive. The tension inside the Mage Tower had reached a strange, almost domestic equilibrium. The days of outright assassination attempts and cold, lethal silence had been replaced by something far more baffling: a war of information and a very clumsy attempt at seduction. I sat in the library of our guest quarters, the heavy scent of old parchment and cooling tea filling the air. In my lap was the mysterious book I had received, the one that seemed to be a message from a future daughter named Ruel. It was a guide, of sorts, a roadmap through a destiny I was actively dismantling. But as I read, I felt a shadow fall across the page. Sael was standing over me, her light blue hair partially obscuring her face, her sky-blue eyes narrowed in a look that was more suspicious than usual. "What is that?" she demanded, her voice a sharp, icy chime. "You've been staring at those pages for hours. Is it another plan to humiliate me? Or are you writing down more insults to throw at my face?" "It's a book, Shale," I said, not looking up. "A concept I know is difficult for someone who prefers throwing things at people's heads to actually reading them. And, for your information, I don't need to write down insults for you. They come to me quite naturally whenever I look at you." You squid!" She reached out, her fingers twitching as if she wanted to snatch the book away, but she hesitated. There was something different about her lately. She was no longer just the wicked woman who lashed out. She was a woman who was hiding a secret of her own. I had caught her earlier that morning, frantically stuffing a brightly colored volume under her pillow. The title, which I'd caught a glimpse of, was something ridiculous: 999 Ways to Seduce a Man Hotly. It seemed the villainess had decided that if she couldn't break me with magic or malice, she would try to defeat me through the one thing she understood even less: romance. "Go away, Iran," she snapped, her ears turning a telltale shade of pink. "I have things to do, villainous things, strategies to plan." "Right, strategies that involve hiding under your blankets," I mocked, finally closing my book and standing up. I stepped into her space, watching her eyes widen as she reflexively backed toward the mahogany bookshelf. "You know, if you wanted to know how to seduce me, you could just ask. You don't need a manual written by someone who probably hasn't seen a man in a decade." I would never," she stammered, her face flushing a brilliant crimson. "I was merely researching the weaknesses of the male species. It's a tactical necessity. Is that so?" "Then I look forward to your tactics," I said, giving her a slow, villainous wink that I knew would drive her crazy. The tactics began that afternoon. We were sitting in the garden of the Mage Tower, the sky a vibrant, magical violet, when Sael suddenly turned to me. She looked like she was in physical pain, her body stiff and her expression a mask of forced determination. "Iran," she said, her voice sounding like she was reading from a script. "Yes, Shael? Do you want to eat catfish?" I stared at her, the silence stretching between us until it became uncomfortable. What? Catfish? Right now?" "Answer me!" she snapped, her villainous persona slipping back in to cover her embarrassment. "The book said, I decided we should eat catfish. It is a traditional meal for those who are about to be defeated. Is this a threat?" I asked, a laugh bubbling in my chest. "Are you going to feed me to the catfish, or are we having a picnic? Because usually, people offer a drink or a stroll, not bottom-feeding riverfish." "Just follow me," she grumbled, grabbing my sleeve and dragging me toward the tower's kitchens. We ended up in a small private dining room, staring at 2 plates of steamed catfish. Sael sat across from me, her arms crossed, watching me with an intensity that suggested she expected the fish to act as a love potion. I took a bite, the flavor surprisingly delicate, though the awkwardness of the situation made it hard to swallow. "Is this the hot seduction?" I asked, leaning back and watching her. "Because it's definitely hot, but mostly just the steam from the fish. If you were trying to make me fall for you, you might want to try something that doesn't involve bones and whiskers." "Shut up and eat," she hissed, though she didn't touch her own plate. She was waiting for the right time, her eyes darting to the door as if expecting a troupe of musicians to burst in. The strategy didn't end there. Over the next few days, Sael became a whirlwind of stupid behavior. She tried to interrogate me about my favorite things, but every question felt like an accusation. "What kind of flowers do you like?" she asked one evening, slamming her hands on the table. "And don't say lilies just because I like them. I want to know your weakness." "My weakness is your inability to have a normal conversation, Shael," I replied. "And if you must know, I like weeds. They're persistent, annoying, and they grow everywhere they aren't wanted. Remind you of anyone? You're calling me a weed?" Her sky-blue eyes shimmered with a mixture of hurt and fury. "I'm calling you resilient," I said, my voice softening just a fraction. "A weed is harder to kill than a lily, and a lot more interesting to watch." She froze, her mouth slightly ajar. It was a first draw, a moment where neither of us was winning, and the air between us felt heavy with something that wasn't malice. I could see her struggling to find an insult, but her heart wasn't in it. She was the evil woman, who was realizing that her cowardly revenge was failing because she couldn't help but care about the man she was supposed to be tormenting. The tension broke when I decided to take the offensive. If she wanted to play a game of treasures, I would show her what I truly valued. I caught her in the hallway later that night, her Seducation manual tucked under her arm. "Give it to me, Shael," I said, blocking her path. "No! It's my property! My villainous treasure!" She tried to dodge around me, but I caught her waist, pulling her back against the cold stone wall. "The villain steals the treasure," I whispered in her ear, my mana humming as it reacted to her proximity. I reached out and plucked the book from her grasp. I flipped to a random page and began to read aloud. "If the man is stubborn, tell him he is a dog, and then feed him a dessert he hates. This will create a bond of mutual suffering." I looked down at her, a genuine laugh escaping me. "Mutual suffering? Shyle, we've been doing that for months. You didn't need a book for that. I just wanted to win," she cried, her face buried in my chest to hide her shame. "You always win. You always know what to say. You're the villain, and I'm just a fool." "You're not a fool, Shyle," I said, my hand resting on the small of her back. "You're a villainess in training. And the first lesson of being a villain is knowing when to abandon a failed strategy. This book? It's trash. If you want to know how to get to me, look at me, not at some paper." She looked up, her eyes swimming with tears. "I hate you, Aaron Boslet. I hate you for making me feel like this. I hate you for not letting me be the person I was supposed to be." "I know," I said, leaning down until our noses brushed. "That's why I'm the only one who can rehabilitate you. Because I'm the only one who isn't afraid of the mess you've become." She didn't reject me then. She didn't call me a squid or tell me to go to bed. She just stood there, her heart beating against mine. A wicked woman who had finally realized that her greatest treasure wasn't gold or magic, but the man who had dared to treat her like a human being. The draw was over, and as we stood in the quiet hallway of the Mage Tower, I knew that the next phase of our lives wouldn't be fought with manuals or catfish, but with the terrifying, undeniable truth of what we were becoming to each other. I was no longer just a reader in a story. I was the one writing the chapters now, and I was going to make sure the villainess finally got the ending she never knew she wanted.